Thoughts in a Garden by Andrew Marvell. This is part 2, and we shall do the analysis of stanza 5th to 9th. Stanza 5. What wondrous life in this I lead! Ripe apples drop about my head, the luscious clusters of the vine upon my mouth do crush their wine. The nectarine and curious peach into my hands themselves do reach, stumbling on melons as I pass, ensnared with flowers I fall on grass. In stanza 5, we get to see the volta. Volta is an Italian word meaning turn, and in poetry, it represents the specific place in a poem where the speaker's train of thought shifts. It changes abruptly or turns. Words like but, yet, or alas are common indicators of volta. But here, the transition is more subtle. The shift in thought is really more like a shift in argument. The speaker turns from his argument that nature is better than society and begins talking instead about why nature is so beautiful. The speaker goes on praising the abundance of fruits and plants in the garden, imagining himself tripping over melons and falling upon the grass. What a wonderful time he's having in this garden. Ripe apples hang downwards from the trees so as to touch his head. The delicious bunches of grapes growing on the vines come into such close contact with his lips, he walks that the juice enters his mouth. The nectarines and the exquisitely formed peaches come into his hands of their own accord, without him making any effort whatsoever. The melons grow on the ground in such plenty that, as he walks, his feet strike against them and his walking is obstructed and entangled among the flowers. He falls on the grass. Stanza 6. Meanwhile, the mind from pleasures less withdraws into its happiness. The mind, that ocean where each kind does straight its own resemblance find, yet it creates transcending these far other worlds and other seas, annihilating all that's made to a green thought in a green shade. Meanwhile, his mind retreats into a state of inner happiness, allowing him to create and contemplate other worlds and other seas. The speaker says that while his body remains on the grass, his mind withdraws itself from the body because it is not interested in the lesser or inferior pleasures offered by the fruits. His mind seeks the happiness of a different kind, which originates from the mind itself. The mind is like an ocean where each creature living on the land has a counterpart in water. However, the mind can also create altogether different lands and different oceans, which quite surpass the real lands and real oceans. The mind reduces everything that has been created to nothingness, giving rise to fresh and vigorous thoughts in the shade of a green tree. Stanza 7. Here at the fountain's sliding foot, or at some fruit tree's mossy root, casting the body's vest aside, my soul into the boughs does glide, There, like a bird, it sits and sings, then wets and combs its silver wings, and, till prepared for longer flight, waves in its plumes the various light. Here in the garden, close to fountains, where his feet slip on account of the wetness of the ground, or close to some fruit trees, the lower parts of the trunks of which are covered with moss, his soul discards the outer garment of the body and goes noiselessly into the branches of the trees. There, on the branches, his soul sits like a bird and sings. Then his soul preens and combs its bright wings as a bird does. And finally, having prepared itself for a longer flight, waves the manifold light in its wings. Indirectly, the migration of a bird is being compared to the death of the speaker. The longer flight is actually the permanent separation between soul and body at the time of natural death. Stanza 8. Such was that happy garden state, while man there walked without a mate, after a place so pure and sweet, what other help could yet be meet? But it was beyond a mortal's share to wander solitary there. Two paradises it were in one, to live in a paradise alone. Here, the speaker find himself in the same happy state in which Adam was when in the Garden of Eden, when he walked alone without a companion, when he found himself in such a pure and sweet place, no comparison could have been appropriate for him. So, he compares the scene to the happy garden state of Eden, the biblical paradise in which God created Adam and Eve. Adam could not have wished for any companion, and no companion could have suited him. For it was not the happy lot of a mortal to be allowed to roam about alone in that place. Had he continued to live alone in the Garden of Eden, he would have enjoyed the happiness of two paradises. One, the paradise which was the Garden of Eden, and second, the paradise of being alone. Stanza 9. How well the skilful gardener drew of flowers and herbs this dial knew, where from above the milder sun does through a fragrant zodiac run. And as it works, the industrious bee computes its time as well as we. How could such sweet and wholesome hours be reckoned but with herbs and flowers? How skilful was the gardener who made the flowers and plants grow here in such a manner and according to such a pattern that they collectively serve as a sundial. The rays of the sun fall on this sundial with diminished heat after passing through the green leaves, which may be compared to the signs of the zodiac. Now, zodiac is the name given to that belt of the heavens which include all the apparent positions of the sun and planets. And the hard-working bee, while at work, is able to calculate the passing of time as correctly as we human beings can by consulting this sundial. After all, how the passing of such sweet and refreshing hours could be calculated in the garden except by means of the sundial formed by the plants and flowers. The poem the poem's final stanza contains an extended metaphor comparing the garden to a private universe, containing its own fragrant zodiac of flowers and a cosmic timekeeper in the form of the bee, whose industrious labor marked the passage of time.